You won't believe what happened the other day when Karen's son decided to take my Harley for a joyride without asking. Now, I'm not talking about just any bike. This Harley isn't just a motorcycle. It's my pride and joy. Something I've worked hard for and taken care of like family. But here's the twist. This bike isn't ordinary. It's wired with a special police alert system I installed after a close call a while back. So when Karen's son revved it up and tried to speed away, things didn't go as he expected. Let me back up a bit and introduce you to the players in this little drama. Karen is the type of neighbor everyone knows, loud, opinionated, and always looking for ways to stir up trouble. Her son, well, he's got that same wild streak, and he's always testing limits. I've tried to keep things cool, but lately, the tension between us has been growing. And this whole Harley incident, it was the spark that lit the fire. That day started like any other, but I quickly noticed my bike was missing. At first, I thought maybe I forgot where I parked it. But then I heard the distant roar of the engine. My heart sank. When I followed the sound, what I saw surprised me. Karen's son was trying to ride off on my Harley like it was his own toy. The moment he hit the throttle, I knew something was wrong, not just because of the sound, but because I could hear a strange, sharp beep coming from the bike. The police alert system I wired in was activated. But did he notice? Did he realize what was about to happen? What happened next changed everything. I had no idea how this wild ride would end, and honestly, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Stick around, because this story is far from over. The moment Karen's son tried to speed away on my Harley, I felt a rush of emotions, anger, disbelief, and honestly, a little fear. This wasn't just about the bike anymore. It was about respect, boundaries, and the kind of trouble that could spiral out of control fast. You see, this neighborhood has had its share of drama, but nothing quite like this. I've always been careful about who touches my bike, especially since I added that police alert system after someone tried to mess with it last year. That experience taught me to be extra cautious, and now that caution was paying off in a way I didn't expect. Karen's son has always been a bit reckless, but I never thought he'd go this far. There's been tension between us and Karen for months, little arguments over noise, property lines, and just the usual neighbor stuff that can slowly build up. But this felt different. It felt like a challenge, like they were testing me to see how far they could push. And the fact that the bike was wired to alert the police wasn't just a safety measure. It was a way to protect what's mine from people who don't respect it. As I followed the sound of the Harley's engine, my mind raced. What if the police showed up before I got there? What if Karen's son didn't realize the alert was going off and things escalated? And what about Karen? Would she'll try to cover for her son or confront me head-on? The neighborhood was starting to buzz with whispers, and I could feel the pressure mounting. Every second felt heavy with tension. The police alert system was blinking. The sound of sirens might be close, and I was stuck between wanting to stop the situation peacefully and preparing for whatever was coming next. This wasn't just about a stolen ride anymore. It was about how far things would go before someone finally stepped in. The real question was, who would? As the sirens grew louder in the distance, I found myself caught in a whirlwind of thoughts. This wasn't just about a stolen Harley anymore. It was about how far Karen and her son were willing to go to get under my skin. I remembered the small fights we'd had before, the rude comments Karen would make about my bike being too loud, or her son's reckless antics that had caused minor chaos around the block. Now, it all felt like it was leading to this moment, a collision that neither of us saw coming. But there was more beneath the surface. Karen's family had been struggling lately, rumors of financial problems and tension at home. Maybe that explained some of the reckless behavior, but it didn't excuse it. I wondered if her son was acting out, using the neighborhood as a stage for his frustration. It made me think about the kind of environment we live in, where neighbors who should be looking out for each other instead end up locked in petty battles. At the same time, I felt a mix of guilt and responsibility. Maybe I should have talked to Karen before things got this bad, tried to find some middle ground. But with every confrontation, it felt like the distance between us only grew wider. And now, with the police alert triggered, things were no longer just about words or minor disputes, they were about consequences. The flashing lights of the patrol car came into view, and I knew this situation was about to get even more complicated. What would the officers think when they arrived? Would they understand the backstory, or just see a kid trying to steal a bike? And what about Karen? Would she come outside, ready to defend her son, or would she disappear into the background, letting the chaos unfold? There were so many questions, no clear answers, and the tension in the air was thick. This wasn't just a story about a Harley wired to a police alert. It was about trust, boundaries, and how a single moment can ignite a storm that changes everything. And trust me, the worst was yet to come. The police car pulled up with flashing red and blue lights cutting through the late afternoon haze, making my heart race faster than the roar of the Harley's engine. Karen's son still had the bike, clutching the handlebars like he was ready to take off again, unaware or maybe ignoring the consequences of the alert that had already gone out. I could see the tension in his eyes, equal parts fear and defiance, and I knew this moment was about to reach a breaking point. The neighborhood seemed to hold its breath as neighbors peeked from behind curtains or paused in their yards, sensing the storm about to unfold. I called out to Karen's son, trying to keep my voice steady, but the mix of adrenaline and frustration made it hard to stay calm. "Put the bike down," I said. "It's not worth this." But he just stared, the engine revving louder, making the warning beeps from the police alert system almost drowned out. The officers stepped out of their car, their hands hovering near their radios, ready to act if things went south. The entire scene felt like it was balancing on a knife's edge, one wrong move, and everything could spiral into chaos. Meanwhile, I couldn't help but wonder what Karen was doing. Would she come out now, stepping in to protect her son, or maybe escalate the situation even more? The tension between us had been building for months, and now it was like all that built-up anger and frustration was charging through the air. Thick and electric, my mind raced, weighing every possible outcome. Was this just a reckless stunt from a kid pushing boundaries, or was it something deeper, something that could tear this neighborhood apart? The flashing police lights, the revving engine, the silent watching neighbors, they all added to the weight of the moment. It felt like everything was about to explode, and I was standing right in the middle of it, waiting to see what would happen next. Just when I thought the situation couldn't get any more intense, something unexpected happened that flipped everything upside down. As the police officers approached cautiously, ready to take control, Karen suddenly appeared at the edge of the driveway, her face a mix of panic and anger. But instead of rushing to pull her son away or calm things down, she shouted something that caught everyone off guard. She claimed the bike was hers, that I had no right to stop her son from riding it. The crowd around us stiffened. This wasn't just a simple case of a kid taking a neighbor's bike anymore. Now there was a full-blown dispute over ownership. I was stunned. I knew how much that Harley meant to me, and I had every proof to back it up. Registration, insurance, everything. But Karen's words spread doubt fast. I could see some neighbors exchanging glances, confused and curious about what was really going on. Was this some trick, or was there something deeper buried beneath all the noise? "Oh, the police." Officers hesitated, caught between the claim Karen was making and the obvious alarm from the bike's alert system. The tension thickened as voices started rising, neighbors chiming in with their opinions. and Karen's son gripped the handlebars tighter like he wasn't ready to give up just yet. Now, the situation wasn't just about a stolen bike wired to. A police alerted was about trust breaking down in the community, about secrets no one saw coming, and a conflict that was far messier than anyone expected. The line between right and wrong blurred, and the stakes went up in a way I hadn't imagined, as the sirens continued to wail and the neighborhood watched with bated breath. I realized this fight was far from over, and whatever happened next could change everything, not just for me, but for all of us. The air was thick with tension as the officers looked back and forth between me and Karen, trying to piece together the truth. I stepped forward calmly, pulling out my phone and showing them the digital registration and the video. Footage from my security camera, clear proof that the Harley was mine. The screen showed Karen's son sneaking toward the bike moments before the sirens went off. The officers nodded, but the surprise in Karen's eyes told me this wasn't just about the bike anymore. Suddenly, Karen's voice cracked as she admitted the truth: she and her son had been struggling financially, and the son thought borrowing the bike for a quick escape was his way out of a problem he hadn't shared with anyone. She apologized, not just to me, but to the entire neighborhood, revealing cracks in their family that nobody knew about. The conflict wasn't just about a stolen ride or neighborly disputes. It was about people pushed to their limits, making mistakes they never intended. The officers took the bike back safely, and Karen's son promised to face the consequences. But there was an unspoken understanding that this was a wake-up call. For everyone, the neighbors started to talk differently, less judgmental and more willing to listen. What had begun as a clash over a Harley wired to a police alert ended up exposing the fragile human stories behind every confrontation, just as I thought the story was settling. A quiet beep from my phone caught my attention. It was an alert from the bike's system. Another movement detected, but this time the source wasn't Karen's son. I turned just in time to see a shadowy figure slipping away down the street, and suddenly I realized this drama was far from over. The real challenge was only beginning after the shadowy figure disappeared down the street. My heart pounded harder than before. It was clear the situation with Karen's son was just one part of a bigger problem someone else had been lurking around my Harley, maybe waiting for the right moment to strike. The police stayed with me for a while longer, reassuring me they'd keep an eye on the neighborhood. I realized then that installing the police alert system on my Harley wasn't just a precaution, it was a lifesaver. In the days that followed, the neighborhood felt different. The tension that had built up over months began to soften. Karen and I talked briefly, not about blame or fights, but about understanding. She shared more about the struggles her family was facing, and I realized how easy it is for frustration to boil over when people feel stuck. It wasn't just about a bike or a loud engine, it was about respect, communication, and community. I also made some changes to the bike's security, adding a few more layers of protection, knowing now that some threats come when you least expect them. But more than that, I made a mental note to stay connected with my neighbors, even the difficult ones. Sometimes, a little understanding can prevent a lot of trouble. Looking back, this whole experience taught me a lot about boundaries and trust, but also about compassion. Conflicts like this don't happen in isolation. They're tied to real lives, real struggles. And while my Harley was safe, what really mattered was finding a way to keep the peace before things got worse. So, if you ever think about protecting what's yours, remember, it's not just about the gear or gadgets. It's about knowing your community, standing firm, and being ready for whatever comes next. Because sometimes the wildest rides teach the most important lessons.